How you doing? I'm Callan and this is Slapped Ham. The following mysterious disappearances are still perplexing even today. But before we get started, hit that subscribe button for more interesting content just like this. In 1890, one of the earliest pioneers in the field of photography hopped on a train headed for Paris. By the time the train stopped, he was gone, leaving authorities to wonder how someone could go missing from a moving train. The other passengers on the train were interviewed and no one saw or heard anything suspicious. This was rather unusual in a closed environment like a train. However, what makes this case one of history's most mysterious disappearances is the fact that all of the doors and windows on the train were tightly sealed, making it impossible for Prince to have leapt from the train. The entire train and the land around the railroad were carefully searched, but there was no sign of Prince. To make this case even more confounding, Prince's baggage was also missing from the luggage car. As Prince was not seen outside of his own cabin, how could he have taken his luggage from another car? There have been numerous theories about what may have happened to Prince. It was widely known that he had been experiencing financial problems, so some say that the entire trip was an elaborate suicide. However, if that were the case, why wasn't his body ever found? Others claim that a member of Prince's family, disgraced by his financial difficulties, murdered him on board the train and snuck his body out in their own luggage. However, as the train was carefully searched and no evidence of foul play was ever discovered, this seems unlikely. One of the more dramatic theories about Prince's disappearance revolves around professional rivalry. While Prince was busy making advances in photography, an American inventor by the name of Thomas Edison was working to keep up. Once Prince disappeared, Edison swooped in and took all the credit for inventing motion pictures, even though it was Prince who made many of the breakthroughs. This lends some credence to the theory that Edison was behind Prince's disappearance. However, how could he have done it? Some mysterious disappearances start out seeming relatively straightforward. The disappearance of Beverly Potts of Cleveland is one of those cases. In August 1951, when she was just 10 years old, she went to a local festival with a friend. The friend left early, but Beverly wanted to stay until the performances ended. Tragically, she never returned home. There was a huge search all over the city, but no clues were ever found. It was assumed she had been kidnapped. The case went cold until things started to get strange over 40 years later, when cryptic letters began to surface. The first letter, found in a home being renovated in 1994, claimed that the writer's husband had murdered Beverly. However, this letter was determined to be a hoax by an abused wife seeking revenge on her tormentor. Then, in 2000, a newspaper received a total of 4 letters claiming that the writer had killed Beverly. The letters gave gruesome details about the supposed murder. Authorities believed the letters were legitimate. The writer of the letters, if they did indeed kill Beverly, may have been struggling with a guilty conscience. In one letter, the writer promised that upon their death, an envelope would be delivered giving more details about Beverly's death, including the name of the killer. In other letters, the writer stated that they were planning on confessing and turning themselves in to police. However, the writer changed their mind in the final letter. The letters were not signed. Authorities studied the letters carefully, searching for clues to the writer's identity. However, they were unable to glean any additional leads about Beverly's murderer. Despite the cryptic clues these letters provided, the disappearance of Beverly Potts is still unsolved. In some mysterious disappearances, the vanishing act itself isn't all that surprising. One such case is that of 40-year-old Florida resident Diane AUGAT. Before her disappearance in 1998, AUGAT led a troubled life. She had been diagnosed with a manic-depressive disorder, but only took her medication sporadically. Her family also believed she had problems with drugs and alcohol. In 1988, her children were taken from her custody. She was arrested several times and placed in temporary psychiatric care. Because of this checkered past, no one was very surprised when she disappeared in 1998. However, 3 days after AUGAT's disappearance, clues turned up that make this one of the most mysterious disappearances in history. The mystery started when AUGAT's mother received a phone message on her answering machine. She heard someone who sounded like AUGAT say, "Help, help, let me out," and "Hey, give me that," before the phone disconnected. It sounded like someone had grabbed the phone away from the speaker. On the caller ID, AUGAT's mother read only the words "Starlight." In later attempts to call the number, no one answered. 2 days later, authorities found the tip of AUGAT's middle finger near the place where she had been last seen, but there was no other evidence of a struggle there. Earlier searches had turned up nothing. 2 weeks after the grisly clue was found, a bag of AUGAT's clothing turned up in a freezer of a local convenience store. No one knew how the clothing had gotten there. Over 2 years later, a local paper published a story about the disappearance, prompting another bag of AUGAT's belongings to appear in a convenience store freezer. Who planted these items in plain sight? How did they do it without anyone seeing them? Despite these cryptic clues, AUGAT has never been found and authorities have no leads. There are some mysterious disappearances that go back centuries but are still unsolved. One of these disappearances is that of Edward V of England. Edward V was the son of Edward IV. Royalty is often a hub of controversy and conspiracy, and Edward V's brief time on the English throne is no exception. Upon his father's death, a dispute arose about Edward V's claim to the throne. His uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester, claimed that Edward's father's marriage had not been legitimate. Parliament ruled in Richard's favour. However, Richard feared that the people of England would still be loyal to Edward V, so he locked him and his brother away in the Tower of London. They were never seen again. Years later, 2 skeletons of young boys were found in the Tower of London. Many believe that the skeletons belonged to Edward and his brother. However, historians are unsure. Many believe that Edward V was murdered by his uncle to preserve his right to the throne. The theories are gruesome, ranging from suffocation and drowning to having their arteries cut out. Others believe that Edward died because of some mysterious illness. Some proponents of this theory believe that Richard allowed the illness to go untreated, or that he ordered treatments that actually led to his nephew's demise. However, some people at the time and some historians today believe that Edward actually escaped from the tower. There is no evidence to support this claim, but there's also no evidence to support claims of his death either. For this reason, the case remains a mystery. Before we get to that number 1 spot and take a look at a mass disappearance in Sweden, remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on channel notifications. That way you won't miss out on any of our new content. There's nothing more mysterious than a mass disappearance. When one person goes missing, it's easy enough to come up with a plausible explanation for where they could have gone. However, when a large number of people seem to vanish at one time, that is truly a mystery. One example of an unsolved mass disappearance is a case in Sweden in 1965. In Gothenburg, 3 friends who worked in the local shipyard got into a car, drove out of town, and were never seen again. This case was peculiar from the start because it took authorities days to realise that the men had left town together. This caused the investigation to get off to a slow start. Authorities then realised that none of the 3 men had a driver's licence, so why did they decide to drive away together in a car? Friends and relatives had no idea why the 3 men had suddenly left town. None of them had taken any large amounts of money with them. Additionally, one of the men was soon to be a father, so why would he suddenly choose to disappear? To make matters even stranger, on the same day that the 3 men disappeared, a local art student also vanished. Before he went missing, he mailed his family a cryptic postcard reading, "All is well, don't worry." Authorities suspected that the cases may be connected, but there was nothing concrete to link them. Finally, a third bizarre event unfolded in the town that day. 2 men, one dressed in drag, robbed a local bank. The robbers eventually fled to the river, stripped off their clothes to reveal full scuba gear, and disappeared into the water. Again, authorities considered a connection to the other cases, but found no evidence of a link. A few days after the disappearance, the sister of one of the men saw a stranger standing outside her brother's apartment, wearing her brother's sweater. When she confronted the man, he said the brother could be found in the pub district. However, the brother was never found, nor were any of the other men involved in these 3 cases. Was there some mysterious link between these disappearing men, or was it just a crazy day in Gothenburg? Authorities still don't know the answer. If you want more mysterious stories just like these, check out our paranormal disappearances video right there. Or if you want to have a bit of a binge, check out that playlist right there. Now in the comment section below, let us know if there's any reasonable explanations to some of these disappearances. And that's it for me. I'll see you all next time.